This week is. Sorry, I'm just going to copy it off. Sorry about that. This meeting is held remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection and Regulations and Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public trust obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies and available through the Council's website. You should be aware that the Council is the data controller under the Data Protection Act 2018. Data collected during the recording or live streaming will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy, including but not limited to the purposes of keeping historical records and making those records available via the Council's internet site or YouTube. If you're participating in the meeting, you acknowledge that you may be filmed and that any information pertaining to you contained in the recording or live stream of the meeting will be used for webcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of historical records and for the records being available to the public. In making this use of your information, the Council's processing data which is necessary for the performance of tasks carried out by public interest. You'll be asked to speak at the meeting. Your submission to the committee will be captured as part of the recording or live stream. If you have any queries regarding this, and in particular if you believe that use or storage of any particular information would cause or likely to cause substantial damage or distress to any individual, please contact the governance team at the Council. That's the kind of workflow. Is this a different one? No?
You? It's like we haven't had that.
It was good to hear. It was good to hear. Very reassuring.
Thank you, everyone. I'll need to get these. I'll need to get these keys finished, actually. And with that, can I go to Diane for apologies, substitutions and declarations of interest? Diane.
We have an apology from Councillor Wilson with Councillor Brooks substituting. And in the later education business, we also have an apology from Mr Doherty, one of the church representatives. We will now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting, either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan. Present in the chamber. Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Doherty.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Hellier.
Present remotely.
Councillor McGuire.
Present.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Quinn. Present in the chamber. Councillor Reynolds.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Sorry. We have item number 4, about the IL board. So it's that big file connection, although I will stay in chamber representation as such that it doesn't affect me taking part in the discussion.
And I have seen myself.
And Department 7 for the beacon.
Francesca.
Thanks, Councillor Coherty. I would just make a note that I'm now on the beacon board as well, but I'm sure it wouldn't prohibit me from taking part in the discussions.
Okay, thank you. Is that everyone?
Yep, myself, convener as well.
Yep.
It's just item number 8, the Warm Hands of Friendship grants. I'm part of an organisation that has benefited from a grant. However, I didn't apply for the grant and officers have made the decision. So I believe I can remain in the chamber for that item.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. And with that, we will move on to item number 2, which is the revenue update.
Thanks, convener. This is a community's revenue budget report for 24-25. The current community's revenue budget is £5.660 million, and the latest projections are an overspend of £4,000. That's equivalent to 0.07% of the total budget. And it's a decrease in overspend of £42,000 since the last committee. The overspend mainly relates to employee costs, not achieving turnover target, being offset by over recovery of school lets income, mainly for the 3G pitches at the schools. It should also be noted that the projection excludes £130,000 of Inverclyde leisure utility costs, as these will be funded from an earmarked reserve for the current financial year. So the section 3.3 report lists the main variances responsible for the projected underspend in more detail. Section 3.4 in Appendix 4 gives details of the earmarked reserves. The only remaining earmarked reserve for this part of the committee it relates to community grants, and there will be no expenditure on that earmarked reserve in the current financial year. But there will be expenditure on it in 25-26 when it will act as a substitute for our proposed budget saving. I'm not requesting any requirements this committee cycle, so committee has just asked to note the projected overspend of £4,000 for the community's revenue budget, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Questions? Can't see anyone win either. So with that, can we agree the paper? Thank you. Can we move on to the Infants Capital Programme? And I'll ask you to introduce this.
Thanks so much, afternoon everybody. This is the annual committee response to the capital spending we've got at the moment in our budgets. As you can see within the paper, we're projecting the same amount of work to be carried out as we go forward. 4.1 gives you the current status where we are with the overall total budget, and we're showing that the money that we're allocated towards that moving forward. Just an update on some of the projects that are still live at the present point. And obviously Ed is online to take any other questions about us. Of course, with the capital projects at the moment still live as a fixed asset management plan to recycle some pitches. As you know, we've just completed the car pick at the Carway, the 2G pitch is just completed. And also we managed to secure some funding from Scottish Football Association to relight every pitch that we've got across our estates, including IELs and ourselves with new LED lights, and that's just becoming to completed too, and that money will be brought to the council just at the end of the financial year. 3.6 gives you an update on the King George facility in Port Glasgow, the new Port Glasgow community set-up. As you can see within the report, it's moving very well, and we're hoping to receive the keys back from the contractor at the end of the month. Still got a wee bit of work internally to do for ourselves in opening it, and I'm hoping that that facility, new facility in Port Glasgow, will open sometime around the end of March, beginning of April. We've still got a wee bit of internal work to do from our own council side. There will be an official opening on that sometime within that period, but I'm delighted to say that that's now nearly completed. 3.7 is the Folkestone Community Centre, the Childcare Early Adopter Project, and again that works progressing well. It's on site at the moment, and we're working our way to try and get that completed and finished by the end of March 2025. And that's the development of the old squash courts into a new childcare facility. It's progressing well, and we're hopeful that we can process that finish in time. 3.8 is the Branchton Out Community Centre, and I know that some of you are at the official opening to that. The reason that this will probably be the last time that we're on this report, as this has been complete. Ongoing is just any outstanding works through the retention of any money that was still offered, but that's now complete. 3.9, Bank Street Community Hall. We've now been in discussions, as you know, last year I brought the paper to support the allocation to the Regeneration Capital Fund, and that last stage that was postponed by government because of the funding for these Regeneration Capital Funds. I'm delighted to say now that we've been engaging with the Scottish Government in the last few weeks, and we're now submitting a bid to support the Bank Street Community Hall upgrade, and that will be in by tomorrow, has to be in by the end of the week. But it's ready to go, it's been approved by CNT. It's a different process this time. All the work has to be done within 1 calendar year. So from this year, it has to be confirmed within the 1 financial year. So it's a change from what it used to be, but we're confident that if successful, we can get that over the line. And obviously the Scout group are delighted that that's get back in again to support that upgrade of that facility. So 3.10 is just a list of ongoing asset transfers. The groups and things that we're looking at with the group that Tony chairs. And there's a number of things still live on that. Just one wee thing that's not on this at the moment is that the work with Coppermine at Gourock is that they've now been successful in getting a scale. And we're now working with them to do a formal transfer. That money came in on Friday when they get their paperwork. Obviously, we've had a number of discussions as Beatty Council before. We got the relevant information from them on Friday, and that's been passed to our legal team to process. So again, we'll bring a further report back on that. And they've also been successful in an external grant with additional money to support them in that. So that's great news for them. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Hugh. I'm going to open up to questions. Elizabeth?
Thanks, Kimira. 2 questions, one about the banks, well, two questions about the bank statement, Tong, and another one. Are we confident that, I'm assuming that if we're resurrecting work that was already on chain previously, then we're confident that we'll be able to complete everything that would need to be completed in a calendar year? And also, do we have a timescale of once the bid's submitted, when we should expect to hear and what the next stages are? That's my first set of questions.
Okay, thanks so much, Councillor Lawson. Yeah, we are confident with the scope of works that they were progressing anyway in the background.
Okay.
And they've asked for planning permission. They've now got planning permission, which is a big step moving forward. So we're confident that we must have the contract signed by December of this year, 25. So we're confident we get that. One is successful, but we've had initial meetings with the head of regeneration. And what happens, it's not a full panel now. Some officers' decision with some of the members of the panel. And it's only allocating the ones who were got to stage 2 last year, so it's not an open public regeneration. So there's a number of things, there's about 23 million available. So we're looking for 515. What we have also done is looked at additional costs because of the cost would be inflation, because it was put in 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So we're confident we can meet that.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Thank you. My next question is really just about 3.10, the asset transfer working group. Obviously, it's really useful now that we do have that on an ongoing basis. The organisations that are looking at asset transfer. I'm pretty sure the question I'm about to ask has been asked before, and for that I apologise, but I can't find the answer anywhere. Do we have a list of bits of land and buildings and things? Can we have that? Is that?
Yeah, it's now on the website.
Wait, I can't find it now.
I'll send you a link to it.
There was a point about an hour ago or a couple of hours ago today when I felt very, very silly.
Yeah,
I couldn't find it, and it might well just be that I'm silly.
So take your point on it. I think it's important to know that we have changed the website and the way it's laid out, because I think we were struggling to find it ourselves.
Okay.
We've done a wee bit of work on that
Right.
from 2 different areas, but it's there.
If that can be passed on, that would be amazing. Thanks.
It wasn't just you. Lynn?
No, that's the thing on that. The fact that you couldn't find it and you'll get an idea where to look, would probably be a problem, so it probably does need looked at. Yeah, thanks. Just glad that you did mention the first Gourock and the asset transfer for the Coppermine. It was just, my concern didn't feature on here. So, for instance, we've got Wellington allotments, which were also on hold because they were in the process of setting a ski up. So they were sitting in there in limbo, but First Gourock Scouts is not sitting in there in limbo. So that was a concern, because obviously their aspirations to be asset transferred, they've been in the process for some time, and I think the fact that they needed to be a SKIO was a request from ourselves, so I'd like to still see that in there as pending. So I think that's my concern. So really just to kind of mention Coppermine and the great success, I think it's worth just taking a minute and recognising, the beauty of asset transfer. So 3 years ago, the Scouts did take over Curn Drive Community Centre, as it was known then. Curn Drive Community Centre was up every single year since I got elected as a saving. So every year it's all about, can we hang on to it, it was up for a cup.
And then Scouts came along and it solved a problem from them. So 3 years ago, they got the lease to take on that building. Since then, they've in effect sustained the building. You know, they've got a fantastic business plan. It's been a huge asset. We've got more spaces in there. There's so much stuff going on, which is a credit to Mark and all the leaders there at First Europe. But not only have they sustained that, they've actually added that in terms of care and improvement. So they've now got £180,000 to make that building net zero. Something that as a council we've got an aspiration to do with all our buildings, but they've done it on their own. No help, no help, that sounds like a criticism, but entirely on their own. They went and got external funding and actually fundraised themselves off their own back. So now we have not only sustained that building, but it's now going to be net zero. And the work starts next month. So we went from an asset that was on for a cut to a fantastic community centre, which is now going to be net zero. And there will be probably a flagship, and Mark has been really great with his time and his knowledge to pass that on to other community groups that potentially want to do similar, because we've got a number of community facilities, but there's a whole discussion about passing them over to community and what that looks like. And I think this is a great example of what can happen. So really my plea is that, you know, in fact it's not on here, cause me concern, but the plea is that they don't start at day one. You know, they've been in the system for a long time, their business plan has been designed and redesigned, that we kind of speed that up, if you like, and recognise that we have been in the system for 3 years and not having to start from sort of day one when they've got their SKIO stamp and they have to start at the start of a process. I understand the legal stuff will take some time, but I think that's my concern and my plea, that they don't just start from day one.
Yeah, for yourself, we did not ask them to become a scale. Right, it doesn't need to become a scale, to become an asset transfer. It was the Scouts Association that has to become a scale, not us. So because that's the way that Scouts are going at national level. So obviously, as I've pushed them down the line, we were quite happy to talk to them. But when we met with Mark, he says that they've now been recommended to do that by the Scout Association. So, and that took the time to do that. The legal process is now progressing. We now need to do an evaluation of the site and everything else, and Peter McDonald is working on that. From the emails I've seen over the last couple of days, and as soon as I got the email from Mark to say that now they've got it and they've got the money, it's great that they've got the money. They're very proactive, as you know, and they're doing a great asset to turn that over in that community. So that's I said that in the email I sent back to them. So they've done really well. I think the process now is about trying to move us forward as best we can in timescales. If it's a legal matter, and it'll take the legal team and property team to do that. But we need to come back to it because the asset still needs to be valued. I'll be given over as an asset transfer. So we probably need to come back to committee on that area because there'll be a cost somewhere, but that could be all right by the politicians, by yourselves, together, no cost. So it's in the processes now, and I apologise it's not on it. I just noticed that myself when I came out, and that's why I missed it.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, just a supplementary on that. Yeah. The other concern is about the valuation for that building. If we looked at the asset value a year ago, or at the time it was up for a cut, there would be a value. Now they're going to spend £180,000. It's going to be a net zero building. So my plea also is to make sure that value, the £188,000 was the money that they sought, and you know, so they're not going to suffer the consequences of making the building and improving an asset, and that asset value needs to reflect that, not this new shiny new building that they've delivered themselves.
That'll be done as soon as we post the grant, so we take into consideration that.
Okay, thanks.
No other questions? I've got to admit, I would say that the Scouts building at Bank Street is very similar. When you actually think of Scout building, it was an extending arrangement with the council. So they actually got that in place for a bit of land that the council got in exchange. So it is actually good to see that they're going forward as well. And I think we've got to say that it's great that the RGCF fund is opening up again, and it's good that we'll be more involved in order to put an application in for that. So I think that'll be good, because we were all disappointed last year when it closed down. So we've got to say well done in this whole job again. So that's good news. And with that, can we agree the paper?
Agree.
Thank you. What's the regular for you want to come in? No. You happy? Okay, right, thank you. People on to again Tony, open the corporate club schemes raising. Again, this one has been through the programme, I believe. Oh, sorry if I jumped ahead. I jumped ahead. Please. Oh, it's true, it's totally sorry.
Thanks, Marina. So this is the normal update report bring to every committee, just looking at an overview of local and national initiatives. I don't intend to go through all the initiatives here in the paper. I'll just pick out a few to highlight, I suppose. The first one, probably the review of the Inverclyde antisocial behaviour strategy. There's a national review going on. Our strategy is about to expire, so we're intending to extend the current strategy a couple of months to refine what the national picture is, and we will review that through the Community Safety Partnership as well. Just to highlight 16 days of action, the activities that took place against gender-based violence. We've done a number of activities through Inverclyde, and we've detailed some of these in that paragraph. We're also Police Scotland actively involved in promoting the Ask for Angela campaign. In fact, we discussed this the other day at the Community Safety Partnership, and probably we're looking to try and extend that to make sure all our premises are absolutely aware about that campaign and what it means. And I think there's still a bit of work to be done with our premises, and we'll continue to support Police Scotland on that. I just want to pick out the Inverclyde Leisure Memorandum and Articles of Association. This was a previous discussion at this committee around the term of the board and the employee board representative for Inverclyde Leisure. We took the comments from the committee back to the Inverclyde Leisure board, and they discussed the matter with staff that had put themselves forward, and also with the existing staff members as well, and they felt that the 24-month period is probably a more realistic period for an employee board representation. So they've asked me to bring this back to this committee for approval, so that we can approve this amendment to the Articles of Association. And last, I suppose, just to talk about just a continuation of the great work with the Inverclyde Music Service and the library service, detailed a number of things that were involved in there. Probably just to highlight as well, just a continued work with the Scottish Schools Pipes and Drums Trust. That's going from strength to strength, and they've also given us a number of loan pipes as well, so that when some of our students finish their tuition, that they're able to access loan for bagpipes going forward. They're obviously quite expensive, but we continue really productive work with them on that. And probably lastly, just some of the work we're doing with the Water Institution, continue work to try and improve the overall offer, and also just some of the work that we're replacing some of the really quite old energy inefficient lighting there, and that's through support from the Museum Galleries Scotland. So happy to take any questions on the aspect.
Thanks, Tony. I'll look at the questions. I've got Elizabeth first, and then Francesca.
Thanks, Convener. There's obviously a lot of great things in this paper, and it's always a really useful paper to look at and just see the range of things that happen in our community facilities. The work that happens in the libraries and the museums is fantastic, so they're great. The one that I really want to comment on is 3.4, which obviously was largely myself who ended up with that, going back to Inverclyde Leisure. I still think it was the right thing to do to take it back and reconsider it again, but in the current context and what's been proposed with a compromise of the 2 years, I'm stepping down there, so I'm off my high horse. So I think it's been helpful though that has gone back to Inverclyde Leisure. A compromise has been sought. I do think a year would have been not enough, so I still think I did the right thing there. But a compromise of 2 years seems sensible.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth. Francesca?
Thanks, Convener. It's just a comment about item 3.2, the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, it was just I wanted to give thanks to, I think it was mostly the youth work team, for some of the messages that they shared online on social media during that 16-day period, where I think they must have tasked the young people with imagining a Scotland without gender-based violence, and some of the comments that came through from them were really thought-provoking. And I would urge everyone, if they can, scroll back on the Inverclyde Youth Work Facebook page, or if it was on other platforms, to have a look at what the young people were saying. I thought it was really powerful. And just a thanks as well to everybody who was involved with organising and attended
service at St Mary's Church. There was a really good partnership this year with Inverclyde Women's Aid at it, and a member of staff went forward. That was the way they decided it would be best to operate it, to share some really localised Inverclyde statistics about that awful problem that we have, and also shared a poem from a local survivor that was a really good aspect to it. And just a big thanks to all the schools who attended, representatives from Inverclyde's interfaith community, and the police that were there as well, because I think it made the service really sort of well-rounded and a really important thing for us to spend time doing. Thanks very much.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you. Your input to that. Paul?
Thanks, Convener. On 3.1 National Behaviour Strategy, are we anticipating any major changes to that coming from the approach government? Any new coming down that we're going to change it down a lot of things locally? Obviously, for yourself, Convener, at the moment, we are aware that we're doing a full review and it's led by the Community Safety Network across Scotland with local authorities. We are not aware of any major changes being projected on this, but what we want to do is just to make sure that we're in line with anything that comes out of it. You know, it's every local authority in East Scotland a liability to have an antisocial behaviour strategy. So, and it's not been changed in a number of years, so I would expect there would be some changes, and some it might come into more the criminal justice side of it, and that is for the antisocial behaviour. But we are working, and we are in the working groups, we are aware of what's going on, and as soon as we've got any answers, as Tony said, we'll probably still produce the antisocial behaviour that's running out in March, so we'll just keep that going until we get any word about the review by government.
And will we get further maybe updates via this particular report?
Yeah, it's within this plan, so we'll give, as soon as we get any updates, we'll bring it back to Trump.
Cheers, thanks.
Any other questions? No, can I agree the paper and approve the Inverclyde Legislative of Practical Association Surrogates people?
Agree.
Thank you. And now my other comments, like I've jumped ahead here, is the corporate work scheme.
Thanks, Convener. So this is the report on the review of community land development, which, as you know, began as a review proposal a few years ago and then was moved into the corporate work stream. An initial 180,000 savings target was agreed for this work stream, and the report sets out the results of the review, which is something that we wanted to do anyway, because of the reduction in the CLD workforce over time to make sure everybody was in the right place. But we also needed obviously to achieve the agreed savings target. So just to highlight, like many services, most costs in CLD are actually employee costs. And last year there was a 25% reduction in resources budget in this, and I suppose the impact of this is still being felt by the service. So it felt that when we were doing the review that we couldn't probably take any more of a reduction from the resources element, and it would have to look at the workforce. We undertook an exercise to look at the types of services we provided, the demand for the services, and also whether they're reflective of the current demands being placed upon the service, particularly in relation to community capacity building, and asset transfer, youth engagement and adult literacies, and also community safety. So as a result, we worked with our staff group throughout this, and they were involved throughout in the process to look at the services that we provide. And we believe that we could do an overall reduction in adult learning. Now, this isn't adult literacies and numeracy, this is adult learning services, and a small reduction in youth services in relation to, I suppose, excess work we do in relation to Duke of Edinburgh, which would actually have an impact on the uptake or high figures for Duke of Edinburgh anyway. So the review itself, there's a lot in there, but it is recommending an overall reduction of 4.3 FTE from an overall establishment of 38.5 FTE in this community learning development service. And as I say, this saving can be achieved through the Hugh's worked really hard with the team and looking through a combination of voluntary early release and also the deletion of existing vacancies. So I'm happy to take any questions on the report, I'll probably stop talking there because if you've got any questions about any aspect of the report, and between Hugh and I, we will try and answer them.
Okay, I'll open up at Graham first.
Thanks very much, Graham. I've seen this report in different places within the council and I'm content with it, but I'm just interested in forming maybe a wider understanding of the impact on the TV. I was of an impression, obviously incorrectly, that the youth engagement services were less affected than that was just informed me. So I wonder if you can expand a wee bit more on the effects of youth engagement. And the one that you brought up is the essential, or I can't remember the essential duty involved. I can't remember the phrase you used. So I'm just a bit confused. Could you help me?
I'll let you respond to that aspect.
As we said earlier on, Tony does the presentation and Hugh.
So for yourself, Kieran, so when we looked at the services in total, we felt that, you know, unfortunately to get to some of money that we were asked to look at from the service, then we looked at across the board. And one of the gaps that we've seen, or one of the things that people showed interest in from the Duke of Edinburgh was for own from the Duke of Edinburgh. And the post that we're talking about is a 5-hour post. Right, so it's got no major impact on the full delivery of the Duke of Edinburgh. And on the ticket, and the other side of it, we've just been given another money from P&R from an emergency for Newmarket Reserve for another full-time worker. So when I looked at that, and I had the member of staff who was very vocal about going and taking his early retirement, that's the reason we've done it. So I don't see it being a major impact on the delivery of Duke of Edinburgh. We'll still make sure that we're meeting the criteria and finding the knowledge. It's a 0.5 for us, it's a 5.
Yeah, I'm content that. It seems it's led by the staff worker and it has little if no impact on the young people, and surely that's what we get to care about.
I was just acutely aware of that we didn't want to identify anybody, so I'm quite happy with Hugh's answer. That's as we go back to Hugh yourself. And Caroline,
yeah, just to say that our model of delivery of Duke of Edinburgh is a centralised model. It's an unusual one. Quite often it's put out to schools, but the schools do some input. Of course, they do with the volunteers, and so there was already an overlap with the types of work that post would have been doing.
okay, I can't see any questions.
Natasha's
Was it Natasha? Sorry, Natasha.
Thank you very much. I suppose you've touched on parts of this already. This report really does outline the diversity and importance of the work that LCOD team does. And I'm aware that over the years, mainly due to budget pressures and things like vast amount of ring fencing, that the services has changed considerably. And our needs of our community has still developed. Some of those needs are maybe similar to what they were when we first had the service established. So I can appreciate that some of our needs have changed. So are you content that the result of this service review will provide a more appropriate offering to the people in our area?
Tony, I suppose from our point of view, or from our point of view, and for all us as politicians, we're taking a cut from a service. So we've got to be, as politicians, we've got to realise if we ask for a cut, we put it through the management programme board, you know, and then come back and saying they're not going to be any effect in that. I would expect, of course, there'll be effect, but what you're hearing from Hugh is that the service can take that, you know, can take that. It's not that it wouldn't have any effect, but that's for me as a politician.
Davina, that's not what I'm asking. I'm not saying is there going to be no effect. So what we've heard is that over the years there's been cuts to the service, and that means that there's been almost holes left where we've kind of taken bits from different schemes that we do, and that part of the service review was to try and make it more robust, more fit for purpose. So of course we've taken those savings. There will be a reduction in some services, but are we content that with the service review, that actually with the service that we do deliver, that it's going to be more appropriate for the people that we serve?
Okay, yeah, through you, Peter. Yeah, I think, you know, when we've set out a kind of restructure of the kind of main areas that CLD should be offering in the future, we have tried to maintain, I suppose, rather than grow in certain aspects of it, and that was about maintaining aspects of the service and giving us sufficient flexibility, I suppose, in the future to respond to some of the areas that we need and that we may feel that there might be more pressure on, particularly around, as Councillor Frew mentioned earlier, asset transfer. That requires quite a large degree of resource to support that. So we obviously have tried to minimise the impact, but I think we've got a model going forward that responds to, it reflects a bit more about the demands on the service, and I'm quite confident that we will be able to respond to the demands based when we look at this new structure.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Natasha?
Yep, no, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can't see anybody else. Can we agree with paper? Okay, can we move on to agenda item number 6, which the what institution collections development policy, Tony?
Thanks, Convener. This is a review we have done of the collections development policy and the Macleod Archives acquisition and disposal policy. These are two things that we have had historically within the Watt Institution that allows us to continue with our accredited status with Museum Gallery Scotland, but also it's actually really good practice to reflect on these policies. So what we've done here is reviewed the two policies, brought them into one policy, which is now a collection development policy, and that helps support the staff around the acquisition and disposal and the management of our vast collection within the Watt Institution. So I will try and take questions on the policy itself. Obviously, I was hoping to say there immediately, but unfortunately can't. But if I can answer the question, I will, and if not, I'll come back to if any elected members. But it's really just bringing these two policies together so that we've got a robust way of dealing with our collection and also what to keep and what not to keep in the future, even though we have no plans to throw anything out at this point.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I'll open up to any questions. No questions. We agree the paper?
Agreed.
Thank you. We move to agenda item number 7, which is the Beacon update. Ruth, you're going to take through that.
So this is an update on the performance outcomes linked to the plan that was agreed at this committee in March 2024. Members have had a full briefing on by the Beacon themselves. I won't go through the appendix in detail. There's a lot of very, very good work going on there. Perhaps just to draw your attention to big page 84 with the actual numbers. You can see that the total number of visitors is improving, but perhaps there's been a significant drop on the creative engagement session participants. Now, when we challenged the Beacon on that, what they were saying was, of course, the 2023-24 figures had the Meliora Festival in it, so of course there was larger participation. But what they are saying is, although there's fewer people attending, they are attending for more sessions, so therefore there's a bigger impact on people's lives. It's just not one attendance and perhaps not doing anything else. Just to say that the Beacon board are working on another version of this, I would say, so the yearly plan, and at some point we'll merge the two, but happy to take any questions.
Good, thanks. And just firstly, putting the record my thanks to Beacon for housing us the other week there. It was a very informative briefing that we had from them. And with that, we'll open up to any questions from anybody. Can't see any questions. No. Oh, Francesca.
Thanks, Convener. It was just while we were on that paper with the Beacon, I wasn't able to attend the briefing, but I've seen this paper and seen other similar ones. So it's just to say, like, obviously it's got a lot of really positive items in it. Some really great work, and loads of good news stories, I think, for all of us, and that people who've supported the Beacon longer than I have in this council. So I think it was just a couple of things I wanted to point out was just that we've just had their panto season is over, and I think it was a particularly good year for the panto. But I just wanted to thank the Beacon for some of the partnership work that they had done with our Promise and Care Experience young people as part of their Pay It Forward initiative to support care experience young people to attend the panto, and I think some other groups as well were able to go through that Pay It Forward initiative, and it was just something really positive for lots of people in the community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. We've not got anything else, can we agree the paper?
Great.
Can we go to the next item, which is a for notice paper? I'm sure we can have a discussion on it, and that's the Warm Hand of Friendship. When you want, please.
Thanks, convener. So this report just details for the committee the decisions that were made around the awarding of grants for the Warm Hand of Friendship. As you know, this is a small grant process, up to £3,000, which we've been administering for a couple of years now. And it's really just to allow community groups to apply for grant funding to help people, not so much just about the warm spaces, but it's probably expanded more about socialisation and just reducing loneliness within our communities. So we also this year opted to try and use our community choices or council framework as well to really as a, I suppose, of letting the communities know what is being applied for. And so we did also allow people just to be able to give comments on some of the projects that we are applying for grants, and then through the panel of officers who usually do the community grants fund recommendations, looked at all the grant conditions, things like that, and the governance around it, and then awarded the grants accordingly. So that's detailed in the report. So I'm happy to take any questions that anybody's got.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I'm going to open up for questions. I've got Graham first. Graham.
Thanks very much, convener. So as a substitute to this panel, obviously my question is a wee bit of a historic. I've been contacted by actually an ex-councillor, so that was a member of the community, who just asked about the community grants and where this fits in. And the question was, what is the rationale that this doesn't go to community grants and that this fund is decided by officers and not by elected members?
Yeah. So this was set up as a specific grant looking at warm spaces 2 or 3 years ago, and it was as a reaction to COVID. The original people looking at it was CVS. CVS administered on our part, on our behalf. CVS no longer had the capacity to do that, so we took it in house, and officers have taken on the role of what previously CVS had done. If there is a want to do it through a different way, that would of course be possible, but I suppose it sits separately from the community grants. It's not PB either. We've been challenged about whether or not it could be a PB process. I think there was some confusion throughout the process, but when we put it on council, people thought it was a voting process. That would be another option, but at the moment it's against criteria, so it's each of the applications has to meet set criteria, and that's how basically the grants are awarded. Does it meet the criteria we set out or not?
I can take the answer, just the fact that a member of the community has obviously raised it, that openness, transparency, elected members versus officers, and maybe this committee may, obviously my colleagues who sit on this committee may understand in future, or other members may choose to return to that, but at the moment I'm taking it clear. Thank you.
I just think, just to get clarity for that, about Lennon as well. Just now, this is still time limit funding. This, am I correct? So that this just now is getting funded out of the anti-poverty fund. And again, I'll get clarity if we've got sort of 2 years funded. So of course it'll be up to us as councillors whether we want to take it on or not. But I suppose that's the other reason. That we want to get it run quickly and get out the door quickly. And obviously as well, COVID and the increase in fuel costs at that point in time, that's why we brought it in. And Lynn, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. It's probably just, I'm glad that Ruth mentioned the fact that it wasn't a sort of PB scheme. So in terms of the input into the Council's Community Choices platform, that caused a bit of concern among the community because those groups that were potentially a bit more digitally savvy were winning at that, while others, there was a concern about others, especially because of the demographics of what the fund is for. You know, if I look at Guruk, it was for older people and those potentially with a digital deficit. So those that potentially were getting the greatest benefit from the fund weren't able to access their or put their comments in there, the work they get, and also understanding that a number of those will want to put their comments because feeling going along and requesting assistance because you're maybe in need isn't the easiest thing to do. So I know a lot of our older people will not want to put their comments or be identified as someone that potentially access there because they've got to think about charity and they're quite proud. So it was just to kind of flag that up. I'm sure you're aware of that and how that will feature going forward. Thanks.
I like my comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely aware of that. And what we had hoped to do was get a two-way process going. As Hugh said, we wanted to use the console to get information out about the types of people who are bidding. Now, it's not just people who may access the service, it's also people who refer on as well, so we can get the wider aspects out there. And I suppose it has highlighted some of the issues around PB, the PB process, where when people think it's a voting system, there's a cut and paste and lots of people vote, but actually that was not the purpose of this grant. And that will always be a tension and dilemma, whichever way you allocate grants. But we also we do want to hear some of the stories. We want to, because, you know, quite rightly, you will be challenging us in 2 years' time, saying, what, you know, do we want to continue this funding? What does that look like? And the more qualitative evidence we can get, it's not only people who are digitally active who can feed into it, and I know that some of the workers have been putting, have actually been talking to people and saying what difference does it make. So it's not just people going online and looking at that, and we do hear some lovely stories about the difference it makes to people. Social isolation, and you're right, it doesn't have to be the big groups. Sometimes it's the smaller groups that make the difference. So we'll never get it 100% right, but you know, we'll always look to see how we can engage as many people as possible and make the money work as hard as possible for the community centre.
Any other questions? Oh, Francesca.
Thanks very much. It's really just a few comments about it. I think, as a lot of people around the tables know, I'm a really big supporter of this fund. I think it's really important when people raise questions about it, as is their right, and especially former elected members who are reaching out and still having a voice around this table, which is important, and to bring those community views forward. I think it was just important to sort of remember where it first came from. I think I know Ruth mentioned COVID, but I think there's also the cost of living crisis as well, when there were really kind of stark forecasts about what we thought we were going to see, particularly in places like Inverclyde, where people were predicting situations maybe like railway station type waiting rooms where people would have to go and huddle together just to get a heat or to get some food. And actually, like, I'd had conversations with people at that time, like maybe a couple of people from churches, a couple of groups, and they were thinking, what can we do to respond to this? But actually then when we've had conversations here around Inverclyde Council with officers, with elected members, they came up with something that's actually really special, this Warm Hand of Friendship funding. And I don't necessarily know that there are lots of areas who've responded in this way to get something that, because, like, of course there's that element there of saying, could there be elected member input the way that we have with other things? But the point of this funding, you'll see yourselves there in these figures, it's small grants of up to only £3,000. The point of it was so that places could respond quickly, they could get in touch quickly with a simple-ish application form. But that said, and I've heard from some of the groups that it's a very, very robust process put in place by officers to assess it and then get that funding out to them quite quickly as and when there's a need. And that need is in winter. So I think it's a very responsive fund, and I think seeing this, I've heard some of those questions that have been raised about who's getting the fund and where is it going, but we see here very clearly in these public papers that where the applications are coming from and who's getting the funding. And I think it is that it's going to those grassroots organisations who are right there in the heart of the communities, reaching out to the people who need it most. I think I've always had one piece of feedback on it, and it was just that I thought I wanted to see young people being able to access it and families, as much as we see, certainly we know that older people need it, and there is obviously that we were wanting to see people getting a place to be warm, getting somewhere to get a hot meal. But the additionality that's come from it is that tackling the social isolation, and what we've seen are people were wanting warm activities as much as they're wanting a warm space. I think, like I was saying, I think I wanted to see family groups being able to get that, because sometimes we're seeing it coming through and it is perhaps more leaning towards older people in our communities, which is great. It's great that they're getting it. But then this year, I think we are starting to see some young people coming through, or opportunities for young people and families to get access to that funding, which can only be a good thing. Yeah, thanks.
Interesting. The only thing I would say in this, you've got to remember newspapers as well. There's an army of volunteers behind every one of these applications as well. You know, people who are putting their work into the community for nothing. So whether it's successful ones like the Boulder Weather, John's, whether it's St Patrick's, that I've seen myself as well, that they really are an army of volunteers behind this, and we really do thank them for their work, because you couldn't pay for that amount of people doing this type of work, volunteering today. So there is a thank you to them as well. And fortunately, you've been able to do it our small bit. And great if we can continue that, but we do know just now, I went through it before, the budget is limited to at least, we've got this year and next year as well. So with that, can we agree the paper?
Good.
And I believe that's it for the community side. And thank you very much. And I see you all again. Right, then,